And we're live, hopefully.
Hello.
I always just have to trust the technology, in spite of my paranoia that it's not working for some reason.
I'm just a voice in your head, Ben.
Disembodied.
I am
Not
not
another
real.
one. Yeah, we're both just voices in people's heads today because we're both disembodied. Because I mean, that's mainly because I can't be bothered to set up like any kind of background or even just move to a different room where the background is better. And quite frankly, Doctor Who doesn't deserve it. So
I also have a face for radio.
It's also, I mean, this is quite unusual. This live stream is quite unusual compared to our last one, because last time I had actually watched the 3 episodes that had been released. This time,
and they were pretty bad, weren't they?
They were dreadful overall. And this time, the only one I've seen is The Church on Ruby Road, which was that Christmas one.
That was dreadful.
And the rest, I've just only seen the reviews, which are hilarious.
So, I have slightly more experience of the quote-unquote new series of Doctor Who. I watched the double bill of the first 2 episodes.
Oh, yes.
Which was the Space Babies and the Devil's Cord.
Yeah.
Both of which were completely abysmal. So Space Babies was honestly horrific. I mean, I don't know if you remember the episode years and years ago with the Squiggle Monster at the 2012 Olympics.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Now, for a long time, that was the worst episode that Russell T Davies had ever written, until I watched the Space Babies. And oh, Jesus. It was, I mean, first of all, it's predicated on the whole notion that children are delightful and not disgusting. I kind of watched it with my jaw agape for a lot of it. I was like,
yes,
what the fuck is going on? Am I allowed to swear, by the way?
Oh, say whatever you like.
Oh, I did. It was just like it was the lightest of lightweight Doctor Who nonsense. And I'm just puzzled they chose that as the season opener.
That's very strange to choose that as the first one.
I mean, first of all, I'm not quite sure why they chose it as a script to produce at all.
Yeah.
But why open your season when you're trying to sort of like say, this is Doctor Who from the scratch? If you're new to Doctor Who, this is where you get on. What the actual fuck was I watching?
I mean, it's funny, they're insistent on calling this season 1, even though it's not. It's series 14. And it's like, so the very first episode of your supposedly new show that you're calling season 1, like that. That's what you're going
say
for.
Season 14 is actually season 40 if you include the classic Doctor Who.
On Wikipedia, they're getting into just like a complete like whirlwind, because they don't know. When you look on like the talk pages, they have no idea what to call anything, because there's now like 3 season 1s. And they like before they distinguished
season 1, series 1, and then series 1, but with Disney. So
and it's like, I just think, come on, like it was a mistake for us to call New Who like back in the early 2000s series 1 or season 1. Like we should have just.
I mean, that kind of did make sense back then, because the show had been off the air for 16 years. It was kind of coming back in a new form.
Yeah, and it was
actually quite a good form, because there's this kind of notion that everyone says to me, Richard, you hate New Doctor. I'm like, no, I don't hate New Doctor Who. That's a very reductive bottom of the barrel argument. I had some questions about it. I kind of enjoyed the sort of classic Doctor Who a bit more as well. But going back, those early sort of 2-3 seasons when Doctor Who first came back in 2005, they are fantastic. And I think this is kind of like, it's the basis of our discussion today. Is Russell T Davies, what the fuck happened in 20 years? Did you sort of like fall off a cliff and bang your head about 8,000 times?
It's so strange, because he's had so many, he's produced so many shows where they've been really well written over the last, even since like previous Doctor Who. He's had loads of things that he's written really well, and then suddenly this is absolute trash, and he is
it's like he's diarrheaed on the page. I'm not being funny. It's literally like he's wiped his ass with the script.
It's because I heard him say once that he's a very last minute person and that he does it at 11. It's like, okay, you got away with that up until now in your career, Russell.
It's like,
Now it's not
shit.
working.
No. And I think also quite interesting in one of the interviews, he basically said there's no one saying no to him at this point, which I think is deadly.
That there's a similar thing as well. It might have been part of the same interview where he's saying something like, oh, like my bosses trust me to put like my vision onto the page. And I thought the very fact that you are saying those words shows that there is something deeply wrong in that structure. Because generally speaking, if you are beholden to someone else to the extent that you call them a boss, like you are generally not free to do what you like. There are generally a lot of implicit expectations on
There
what you
needs
are
to be
going to do.
targets, there needs to be checks and balances, and I
Yeah,
feel unfortunately he's been allowed to do whatever he wanted. And well, there's 8 episodes of absolute shit.
that's another thing. Like only 8 episodes.
Oh, thank God for that.
Well, it's the thing. They had more money, I assume, because of all the Disney. Well, I assume that Disney gave them a lot of cash. Goodness knows where.
Don't worry. They had no editorial impact on the show, and if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell
Yeah,
you.
yeah. We had no editorial impact on this show that is exactly like all of the other Disney shows at the moment.
I have to say, coming into the sort of the Russell T Davies 2 era, because I didn't like the Chibnall era at all with
No.
Jodie Whittaker, who I used to refer to as that awful woman. Because it's not a sort of slight, but it is because she was awful and she was a woman. So I'm just stating facts there. She was.
And they made a big point about the fact that she was a woman. They kept telling us how important it was that the Doctor was now female.
But now they don't know what a woman is. Oh
no.
Oops.
It's funny because I really didn't like the style that Jodie played the Doctor in. As I always described it, I probably put it in a review somewhere. It's like a sort of child in oversized Wellington boots kind of portrayal.
She was just cosplaying like the David Tennant Doctor.
Well, she was cosplaying a Blue Peter presenter, cosplaying the David Tennant Doctor.
I think the trouble with her is she had no gravitas on the screen, and so you didn't look and think, "Oh, that's Doctor Who." There, oh, we need to pay attention. You thought, "Oh,
I mean, it's like
woman."
Imagine if they'd said, we're going to have Jodie Whittaker, but we're going to make this like a very sophisticated Doctor, like a Doctor who is just like constantly wearing like very refined clothes. Stands with a kind of like great posture and this sort of thing. Like imagine if they'd done that. Like she could have been an amazing Doctor if they'd gone in that direction.
But they didn't.
Yeah, it's just this strange belief, and I mean, I've often thought it sort of plagued Doctor Who ever since Matt Smith took over. That like it's this kind of zany Gen Z like character that all the Doctors have to be like.
The sort of ADHD. Zipping all over the place, can't
got to be as wacky as they can, and that was the attitude that really hindered Peter Capaldi.
He was a fantastic opportunity there, but he was kind of let down by poor writing.
If they'd made him serious, he could have been like one of the best Doctors we've ever had. But they made him zany.
I do think they in the initial Peter Capaldi, they had the whole idea like. He doesn't care, so he gets someone to care for him. I really liked that kind of grumpy, almost crotchety character they're going for. There's kind of reminiscent of the first Doctor, William Hartnell.
Yeah.
Not the whole timeless child thing, which I think Russell T Davies has lent into kind of accepting that the timeless child nonsense from the Chibnall era is actually what happened. I'm thinking, Jesus.
It's so weird that this keeps happening where someone comes in and they very openly don't care about any concept of canon. They're completely willing to destroy it. But then they have this expectation that everyone after them is going to follow their new canon. It's like, but why should they? You didn't care about it, so why should anyone care about it? Like, if you were so willing to just like destroy the idea that the Doctor was a Time Lord at all, why should anyone else come along and care about what you wrote?
I actually thought it was extremely disrespectful to the writers that came before to think, okay, I'm just going to squiggle my crap all over your previous work. So let's just carry on with that. I thought it was very disrespectful. So I think you know what this leads. This leads to Russell T Davies writing for season 2 of The Acolyte.
Gosh, wouldn't that be like?
I've not even
like
watched that, and I'm like, no,
this,
no,
just
no.
like a perfect mountain of shit.
Oh dear. But this whole thing with the canon thing kind of goes back to, so you know how the season ended with Sutek the Destroyer being brought
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
And again, turns out he'd been riding the TARDIS invisibly since 1975. I'm thinking, oh, fuck off.
Yeah, I'd no idea what happened in that episode, so I don't like. But from everything I saw in the reviews, it kind of just looked like he was just sitting on the TARDIS, just like relaxing. Like, what was he doing? Was he doing anything? I don't know.
It doesn't make any. The more you think about it, the less sense it actually
Yeah,
makes.
and all that nonsense about like, oh well, now all of the past Doctors have been brought back because of bisexual generation or whatever it is. So there's like
High
13 other
generation.
Doctors, and then or 14 or however many, and then also so there's all of those other Suteks, and then there was the thing where where Shutigatwa hit the TARDIS with a mallet, creating another. Did that
I
duplicate?
mean, that was ridiculous. That was
Like,
ridiculous.
and that was all as a result of the, what was it, the toy maker's effect on reality. Did he also affect these other godlike creatures? It's like, who knows?
Which was actually caused by David Tennant drawing a line in Salt with those weird monsters from the second. I mean, I've got my head in my hands just thinking about it. Just thinking, what on earth is going on?
So the entire apparently the entire current state of Doctor Who is just because like one guy used a bit too much salt at one point.
I think it's probably an allegory for the fans getting salty.
Yeah,
Quite rightly, to be frank.
high
I
blood
mean,
pressure.
what I kind of find almost ironic about the choice of Sutek as the villain for the series that we've just had. And first of all, I kind of feel they bigged it up far too much. But also, why would you bring back a classic monster once you've managed to alienate all of the old fans?
Yeah, it's who are you bringing it back for? Like, because none of the new fans care. None of them know. That is just, it's meaningless to them.
And by this point in the season, they've made it pretty clear they are not interested in the old long-term fans, which I think is a very dangerous thing for a series, a franchise, or anything like that to kind of go down.
Yeah, well, it's like what they've done with the Acolyte, where they basically just like they just, well, in the whole of Star Wars is like they decided to buy a franchise, and they have, you know, it's a bunch of people who hate science fiction, who hate the franchise they're writing for, and who hate the fans of that franchise for some reason are in a position of creating it.
And they are determined to bend it to their own kind of will.
It's like,
it's
why
a bit like
did you
The
buy
Witcher
it?
in a way. It's a bit like The Witcher, because apparently the creators of the Witcher TV show, they freaking hated the games, hated the books, hated the fans. They certainly hated Henry Cavill, who was actually like a big proponent of it, and then they let him walk away. I thought, idiots, absolute idiots.
What I
want to know is, how did these people get to these positions of responsibility in these media companies? Because surely these companies must be seeing the ratings tanking, money going down the toilet. I mean, I can't remember the last time Disney made a film that made any money.
I do not understand how Disney keeps getting money to fund anything they're doing, because they've had so many big movie flops, and you
They've
just
lost
like
over like $1 billion in the last few years. I'm
like,
thinking, why does it stop?
Yeah, and it's like, because I mean I've no idea really how Hollywood funding works, but like, as I understand it, sometimes like
you don't
they
want
have
to
to
know.
get well, yeah, but like, as I understand it, they, like, you know, very often they have to get you have to get a loan from a bank or a fund or something like that. That, you know, a lot of these films are made on loans, is my very, very limited understanding. And you just think, if that's the case, is Disney having to take out loans to make these stuff? In which case, who is giving them that? You know, whoever has the money, who's greenlighting it after all of this? You just cannot fathom.
Surely the investors of Disney and these other companies must be thinking, they must be shitting themselves thinking, we're supposed to actually be here to make money, and you're antagonizing the audience with show after show that is both expensive to produce, probably overly expensive to produce. Because wasn't there that film recently? Was it Godzilla Minus Zero? I didn't get to see that in the end. I wanted to see it, but it didn't kind of work out. And apparently, they made that for like a fraction of the normal
Yeah.
budget of a Hollywood film, and it was really good. I
Yeah,
went
I've
to see
heard
the
good things
wrong
about it.
Godzilla. I went to see that Godzilla X King Kong thing, which was about 2 hours of big thing smashy smashy, and that was about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I paid £8.50 to see that film, and I got £8.50 worth of entertainment.
Mm.
I wouldn't have paid more.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it, if you had to pay individually for each subsequent episode of Doctor Who?
I'd be
I'd
demanding my
love
money
to
back.
see, like the drop off in financials for that. But it's funny because there's clearly some part of the current problem is that when you just have to pay for all of Disney Plus.
I don't have Disney Plus.
Yeah, I had it until a few months ago, and the only thing I watched on it was Family Guy. But
Family Guy.
of course, like I was paying money to watch a show that had been made like 15, 20 years ago, or episodes that made 15, 20 years
And
ago.
what
It's
you
like
should have done is just bought the DVDs.
this. I mean, this is what I'm going to do now.
I'm
Not
gradually
least because
yeah.
yeah,
I'm gradually building up a collection of the Simpsons DVDs. Probably
yeah.
the first 10 or 15 seasons before that went to shit.
Not least because I mean, there's already been little kinds of like edits and adjustments to old films and television. And by old, it's like, anything more than 10 years old. There's already been little edits to like remove things that the party does not agree with. And like they're clearly testing the water to see how many edits to old things they can make.
And they can get away with.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to the whole kind of hoo-ha last year about sensitivity readers censoring Roald Dahl, which was that was shocking.
And the really tragic thing about that is like what inevitably happens is a big scandal like this happens. It enters the news cycle, and then I think the publisher said like, oh, we'll make 2 versions available, one of which is unedited, and then it goes out of the news cycle. And it's like, what's been happening with this recently?
And then what they do is they promote the edited version,
Yeah.
so then they can say, oh, due to commercial demand, we're not going to keep the original
Yeah.
anymore.
It's
going to quietly disappear.
Yeah, it just becomes a ruse. It's like it's the same way that like the phrase internal investigation always means cover up. It's whenever
it always means they've checked their emails for about 10 minutes. Nope, can't find nothing. Bye.
Like any like conciliations they make, it's like they're just doing it as a temporary thing to get the news off them
to go away,
and then they're just going to carry on doing what they're doing because fundamentally they have not changed their minds. It's all the same people working there. They still believe they're right. This is always how it works every time something like this happens.
I think this is actually the danger of these streaming services is that the content is just coming and going. It's here today, gone tomorrow. I mean, with The Simpsons on Disney Plus, I think they got rid of the Michael Jackson episode, which was a classic. It was fantastic. For whatever reason that is. It's just odd. And one thing, while we're on the sort of subject, is with Doctor Who, they kind of went for this US first release schedule.
Yes. That's so insulting.
Again, it kind of just says Disney are calling the shots at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it went out at midnight on iPlayer for UK folk. I mean, nothing like watching your family sci-fi drama at midnight, hunched around your laptop. But then they said, "Oh, don't worry, the traditionalists can still watch it on TV." I'm like, "Oh, that's big of you, isn't it?" I think this is the thing they've given up on Doctor Who as like event television because when Doctor Who was on, it used to be an event.
Yeah.
But now they literally blamed the weather for people not watching it.
That's like it's amazing that they were able to say that like seriously.
With a straight face.
Yeah. It's like surely you know that you failed when that's the excuse you have to resort to. Like people would rather just sit in sunlight than watch your television show, even though you can do both on the same day. It reminds me of the fall of Game of Thrones. In that Game of Thrones was my
That was event television. That was event
when you
television.
look forward to you look forward to it so much for the whole week, because it was amazing when it came out. And everyone was watching it, everyone discussed it together, and there was this whole cycle of like theory channels on YouTube. Every week they'd have to think about everything to do with the episode and come up with all these kinds of.
They
It
would
was amazing.
speculate to this amazing amount of depth, thinking, "Oh, what could happen now? What does this?
Yeah.
What does this inconsequential little thing mean?" Oh, but then of course it started going on the slide. First of all, you had the coffee cup that turned up.
Yeah.
Whoops! And with Game of Thrones, I still can't believe how quickly that show just disappeared off of the face of the earth. Basically, no one talks about Game of Thrones anymore because they dropped the ball in such a big way in that final season. Because they wanted to rush off and go and do Star Wars, didn't they?
It's such a delightful irony that they so desperately wanted to leave, seemingly, to go and do Star Wars, but their desperation to leave meant that the show ended terribly. And now, what have they done since? Have they done anything?
Nothing.
Nothing of note, it seems. So their desperation for greater acclaim led them to nothing.
That's the whole thing. I don't quite understand with Game of Thrones. Oh, we're going off on a tangent to talk about Game of Thrones now. By the way, Ben Pick is watching. He's listening. Oh, yeah. It's nice to have you here, Ben. Thanks for listening to me and other Ben. This is like Benception at the moment.
Many Bens, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Ben, you are Ben 1, and Ben Pick is Ben 2.
Well, it's the first time in my life I've got to be Ben 1. Normally I'm Ben 2. Don't change it though. I like
your
like
ego can't handle me changing it.
No.
I was talking about Game of Thrones, wasn't I? I don't understand. With the last 2 seasons, they've done so well. 6 years of 10 episodes a year, nice and easy.
Yeah. And then I think, did they drop it? I can't remember.
Well, they went to 7 for season 7 and then 6 for season 8. I'm thinking, why? They'll probably just say, "Oh, because we were spending more money per episode." Like, oh, fuck off. It's
like the best scenes were where it was just 2 actors talking. That's not expensive. It's like when you had Olenna Tyrell and Tywin Lannister just
that was
talking.
fantastic.
They're amazing scenes, and
you could just watch that all day.
Yeah, it's like a set that doesn't change. Just 2 cameras, 2 actors. That's it. Like, just put more of that in. That's what we want.
Wonder how much Ribena they got through on that show when they were using that in lieu of wine. Unless they were really using wine and they were getting sloshed. But it's like Doctor Who used to do 13 45-minute episodes a year and a Christmas special. Easy peasy. Apparently that's too difficult these days.
Because
apparently I was reading about this. Sorry to cut you off, Ben 1. Okay, this is going to get weird. Apparently they couldn't film as much with the lead actor, was his Shooty.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to shooty me at the end of that. That's what I was saying at the end of the season. Shooty me. It's so bad. Apparently he was too busy still doing, what was it, Sex Education, that they had to sort of do that Dr. Light episode. What was it, 73 Yards, which was apparently really... Apparently that was one of the best episodes that he wasn't in.
Now, is that the one where... I've watched all the reviews, but I honestly can't remember what happened in that one.
I think Ben P will tell us that nothing really happened.
Because in fairness, because there was another one I think in the subsequent one, I'm looking at the list, Dot and Bubble. He was also not in that one much either, apparently. Which, I mean, that actually reminds me of the thing that, because as I say, the only ones I watched are The Church on Ruby Road, and I saw the end of The Devil's Chord because I think you messaged me about it. And mentioned about the musical number at the end, and I was like, "Oh God, I've got to see how bad it is."
I was prepared to let them go with the musical number in the Christmas special. That was bloody horrific. But when they did another one, it even begins with him sort of saying, "There's always a twist at the end." Wink at the camera with that kind of glinting sound effect. I was like, "You couldn't make this." They literally put the bling. I literally knocked my microphone over. I was so annoyed at that.
It's having a fight with the microphone as a Russell.
I'm imagining my microphone is Russell T Davies and I'm strangling it.
But isn't it because I was thinking about this earlier that they keep doing this this fourth wall breaking, and it's like you
It
know,
was so off-putting.
fourth wall breaking, like it can, when it works it can be great, but you have to be so careful when you do it, because obviously the reason why we don't have characters breaking the fourth wall all the time is because if you get it wrong, you are immediately reminded, oh, I'm watching some actors in a studio. It can just immediately pull you out of it, and that happens every single time they try to do it in this series. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is just some like naff TV show that's nowhere near as good as it used to. I'm just reminded of that now.
Naff. It was really naff.
But yeah, I watched the that musical, and it's so funny because, and I
I
even
mean,
just
not being
before,
funny, it is quite well made on a technical level, so give them credit there.
I mean, it's like one of the really frustrating things is that clearly neither Shutagawa nor, is it Millie Gibson who plays the
Yeah.
the sidekick, like, they can't sing, or at least they can't sing well enough to do it without auto tune. And so you've got these incredibly auto tuned voices, and obviously, like in that Devil's Cord one, there's a bit as well that I saw briefly earlier where they're having to sort of play musical instruments and they're having to play the piano, and it's always risky trying to get an actor to look like they're playing the piano if they can't, because they will always look like they're not really
So
playing it.
I don't know if you picked up, but when they got the shot of the person playing the piano, that's actually the composer, Murray Gold.
Murray Gold, yeah, I thought it. Yeah, I'd heard something about that.
I think the whole thing with these kind of sequences, it was just kind of wish fulfillment on Russell T Davies's part. He thought, I can put a musical number in, no one's going to say no. I've got the money for it. Fuck it, why not? I think this whole season, and to quote that Star Wars film, it is sheer fucking hubris. Sheer fucking hubris. It literally is the Russell T Davies show.
It's funny because there are, as I said, like when I was watching clips from that Devil's Cord one, it's kind
dreadful.
it's kind of like with the specials last year, and it's like you just kind of, it's like being like thrown around in a bus with a drunk driver, and you're just like hitting the screens all the time. It's like, like you technically move forward and you technically get somewhere, but you just end up with like a splitting headache, several severe, like, brain trauma or something. But like, there's moments of things where I think, oh, that's interesting, like,
but it doesn't explore that. It doesn't explore that.
It doesn't go into it, and then like
it kind of drives past the interesting bits to go and have the jolly.
Later, it'll do something insane, like get confused around what pronouns the evil character is going to use.
Again,
and you just think,
okay, I mean, this whole thing, because they did it in one of the 60th anniversary special, in possibly one of the cringiest. I mean, not be funny. I've got lots of socially liberal friends, and even some of them were saying to me, "That was really heavy-handed." The whole social comedy, I was like, "Wow, you could." And it's literally like it just strolled off the page from Tumblr.
Yeah,
you just assume that aliens pronouns. Like, oh, fuck off. and then he does it again. The whole makes a big fucking deal out of it.
It's one of those examples of where, and I think I've probably written this in my reviews, of where, like, in that moment, suddenly, like, all of this facade of the costumes and the lines and the actors and the set and whatever all disappears, because suddenly it's the writers speaking directly to you, the audience, and telling you off. Like,
this is what they want to talk about.
Yeah, or everything drops away.
Everything else is just sort of window dressing. It's like, in that moment, they're saying, this is what we really want to talk about.
Yeah, it becomes like not even a public service announcement, but just like, it's they sort of want to be like a primary school teacher telling off a naughty child. They just want to be in this sort of position of, like, I mean, it's like it's authoritarian control, really, but and it every time they do it, it destroys the immersion. It destroys any sense that what you're watching is this sort of persistent world.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should talk a little bit about the kind of baddie in that episode.
I was thinking about
which not be funny, it could have been quite an interesting character.
This is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Could have been quite interesting, but it was just played for sort of laughs. Essentially, it was just a caricature,
This
and
is
this kind of actually um, poses the kind of double standard, because in the Little Children in Need um, Skaro episode,
yeah.
they make a big deal that Davros is no longer in a wheelchair because they do not want to associate disability with evil, which at face value is fair enough. Not that anyone's ever actually done that in the case of
Yeah.
Davros. But then they kind of make a big deal that the baddie in The Devil's Cord is
Yes.
a drag queen. So now you're going to. So hang on, we don't want to
Yeah.
associate disability with evil, but we want to associate drag queens with evil.
Yeah.
I'm getting the impression Russell T Davies didn't really think that far ahead and just wanted to go for the kind of fun. Oh, get one of my drag queen mates to be the over the top
They never
baddie in this
think it
episode.
through, because like the way that it works is, someone who is part of like the crew or the writing team or whatever, some part of the production will say, like, oh, don't you think we ought to change that because it's like offensive in this way? And then the social dynamic works such that you basically, then everyone has to go along with it, because if you challenge it, you are then it's agreed upon that everyone may then assume that you're a terrible person. So,
Oh yeah,
like,
because you don't want this thing to happen. You're
yeah,
you become like an apostate in the kind of
it's
room.
like, yeah,
I mean, the fact of the matter is, I don't think Doctor Who has a writing room. I mean, I think Russell T Davies wrote 5 out of the 8 episodes.
yeah,
Again, I kind of feel he wrote too many of them,
yes,
especially if he was
yeah,
writing them like the night. It's literally like he was doing them like the night before the filming started. Like,
yeah,
shit, I better actually write this. And I also kind of feel in some of the other episodes, Stephen Moffat aside, fair enough. He has pedigree for the show. Obviously, didn't he phoned it in with that episode? I think. But the other writers, I'm like, who the hell are these people? Are they seasoned science fiction writers, or are they just whoever ticks the right boxes for Russell T Davies?
yeah.
Because they did this a lot with the Jodie Whittaker era, is that it wasn't like a
Yes,
promotion of writers who could write the show. It was writers who aligned with the production team's values.
yeah.
Because they
It's
made a big deal about, oh, we're going to have an all-girl production. I'm like thinking, why don't we just have people who are good at the job?
well, it's like how there's this
Sounds.
phenomenon among reviews and reviewers at the moment where when you look at sort of Rotten Tomatoes reviews, or that from sort of so-called professional reviewers, or just anywhere where they appear, these sort of professional reviewers, it's become apparent that there is only one way in which they judge the quality of something, which is, does this thing meet my ideological criteria? If it does, then it was well written. If it doesn't, then it wasn't.
Mhm.
This idea that there's more like abstract, like generic concepts of like writing that are purely to do with the flow of ideas and the text and the dialogue and all this sort of thing, like, that's completely gone. It's like, no, that, like, good things are things that conform ideologically. Bad things are things that
That
don't.
is the sole kind of arbiter of quality in terms of these
Yeah,
people. And I think it's an important point to make that Doctor Who can and has been political in the past. I don't see that as a problem, but it's always done it in a kind of like with a certain level of kind of like style and panache that exists as a layer that you can choose to ignore.
I mean, there's a big difference between like something being, like, quote, political in the sense of it has a very particular ideology that it insists you, the viewer, must agree with, and political in the sense of it is like about things that are political, but it
Hmm.
maybe only it either takes no, the characters either take no opinion either way, or you have different characters who think different things. Is if you have your 2 main characters, let's say, and they encounter some sort of political scenario, but they believe different things. This is a great way to sort of show that the show itself and the story is not trying to sort of compel the viewers to side one way or another.
I agree. I mean, the story itself can kind of carry the kind of political narrative, and then our characters kind of just interact with that. But I kind of feel with this whole season, each episode you keep thinking, oh, wait, what's it going to kind of preach at me today? I mean, there was the social media racism episode. What was it? Dot and Bubble.
Yeah,
Oh, Jesus Christ, that was just bad. That was
I,
just.
I have no idea what was going on with that. It was from just watching the reviews, it was quite difficult to follow, like, what was actually going on in it. But it seemed a bit strange. Am I right in thinking, I don't know, like that they weren't on Earth, they were on some other planet,
I think it's
maybe?
like some sort of colony or something like that.
Which is very strange because, like, if it's either the future or or just another part of the universe, you think, well, surely now these are humans who've encountered all different kinds of alien species. Like they must be very used to just like encountering people who are different to them in all kinds of ways. Why would someone of a different ethnicity from Earth, not, well, I mean, the doctor's not even a Time Lord anymore, the doctor's God, but like, why would someone who appears just like a human of a different
Yeah,
ethnicity surprise you or shock you or be strange to you in any way? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem to make sense for you. I mean, that's assuming that that's what like
I
happened
doubt
in
they
that episode.
thought.
I don't know. But,
I doubt that thought at all. I mean, obviously, it was a bit the fact that all the people on the social media planet were blonde with blue eyes. I thought, subtle.
it's it's very because
I mean, Ben Pick has a good kind of thing in the comments. He said it could have been good if the people they saved became the villains of the season. So at the end of that episode,
yeah,
obviously the Doctor is upset that the people won't let him save them because presumably racism. And again, it was another really heavy-handed scene. It was like, right, this is the message. Stop having
it's
fun.
it's so basic as well. It's like racism's bad, guys. It's like, oh God's sake, like, is this the level of commentary that we're at in 2024? Like, God, wow, what insight, Russell. It's
Really? I had no idea.
yeah, well, this is news to me. Like, it's just so strange that
It's a
they
bit
think
like
that's
whole
clever.
in the Jodie Whittaker years. They had the American businessman running for president, so who
Yeah,
totally wasn't Donald Trump,
yeah,
but was obviously.
yeah.
Oh dearie me.
Did one of the characters punch that guy? I can't remember.
I don't quite remember. I don't really watch very much of it, to be honest.
I've only seen that one once, I think, and never again.
Once was indeed enough.
But it's funny because with Dot and Bubble, like as I said, I the idea of like social media getting to a point where it's literally just around your head, and so it's very
I
difficult to
do
see
kind of
anything
think
beyond
that's
it.
perhaps quite good.
Very interesting idea. Completely ruined by lots of the other stuff in the episode.
I think the trouble is they have a good idea surrounded by so much shit. The
Yeah,
good idea gets kind of choked up. I mean,
this is what I was thinking with
I mean, they did that a little bit, to be honest, with the whole. Do you remember the emoji robots in the Peter Capaldi
maybe.
years? That was actually quite a good episode where you have to stay happy or the whole
Oh,
self-defense system kills you.
I might not have seen that episode.
No,
But
it
it
was
reminds
pretty
me of
good.
what we were saying earlier about the character of Maestro. Like this idea of a villain who is incredibly over the top in how they speak and how they look. They're just incredibly melodramatic and quite camp. This can really, really work well in a villain. Um, assuming you do everything else correctly. Um, they have to
I
like
don't think they did.
no, it's like everything. Like it's a good idea, but with everything else that followed on from it was terrible. And because this like sort of these sort of a very melodramatic villain like that. I mean, to reference my own writing, like in on the subject of trolls, all of the trolls really are these kind of melodramatic villains. Not maybe as melodramatic because it's not a visual thing, but it can really really work. And but you have to. I mean, there's two major failings that they made with the character of Maestro. One is that a melodramatic villain will only seem like a villain if they have such confidence in their
Hmm.
sort of abilities that they never really seem like they feel under threat. They're just like they're completely convinced that they have utter control of the situation, and that's what sort of allows them to be melodramatic. And the other is you can only have a villain as powerful as if you want to have a really powerful villain, you have to show that they are powerful, and you do that by having important characters die, basically.
And this kind of gets on to the point at the end of the season when we have Sutek
Yeah.
destroying anything, gets literally dragged by a lead. Oh dear. And then it's the whole death interacts with death and brings off. I'm thinking, what the fuck is going
Whatever.
on here?
I mean, because like when I watched the reviews of that, I mean, because is it Sutek? He comes back in one episode and then is gone again in the next. I think.
That's
And
it.
like, and is he the god of death?
Well, he's an alien who's assumed God. But don't worry,
Okay.
the unit had a staff member called Harriet Arbinger.
Yes. Yeah, subtle, Russell, subtle.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Harriet
if you're
Arbinger.
going to have a character that is supposedly the god of death,
It's a bit
but
like having a character called Michael Hunt. Goes by Mike.
But if you're going to have a character that's the god of death, like that character cannot just be there 1 minute and gone the next. That character has to last a long time, because otherwise they're just going to come across as like weak and useless and not a very powerful character.
No, it's just like here today, gone to, and everything gets undone. It's like everybody lives.
The
It's the
constant,
whole
like,
Deus Ex
everything's
Machina.
undone. We're all back to square one again after like what is it, like 18 years or something. Everything just resets that exact same moment and setting.
It's like everything's back to normal.
It like, I mean, if you're going to have a character called the God of Death, you've got to have at least one major character die permanently. Otherwise, they will never seem powerful. I mean,
Which major character? Could it have been the Doctor?
probably whatever her name, Millie Gibson's character, Ruby
Ruby.
Thunder, yeah. And
not that her story went anywhere. So they tried to build up this whole mystery. Who's Ruby Sundy's mother? Oh, just some woman.
right.
Who cares?
They did the whole Ray thing of just like, oh, she's no one. Okay, great. What a thrilling story.
What an anticlimax.
It's like,
apart from her benefit stealing step parents or whatever it was. I think there was just so much that just wasn't thought through, and I think he just pulled it all out of his arse essentially. He thought, "Oh, but it's going to get the vibes. Everyone's going to love this." I'm thinking, what's to like?
The whole thing basically is like, I saw oh no, that's a bit of a tangent, but like the whole thing is just, it's just vibes. It's just like, what vibe,
An aesthetic.
like what
mood,
what mood, what aesthetic, what vibe do we want them to have in this scene? Let's ignore the scenes before or after it. It's only this scene, and it doesn't matter. Like, let's ignore like character continuity. Let's ignore plot. It's
what
just
plot?
Like, that was very much the case in that Devil's Cord one, where it's just like, here's a moment. That's what it is. These
are a series of moments.
Yeah, it's not a series of scenes. It's just a series of moments.
I mean, also the Beatles turn up for some reason, then not do anything with that. Then there's the bloody notes floating above the piano.
Yeah, for an episode that seemed to be just like obsessed with the Beatles, it didn't seem to have all that much to do with the Beatles.
They were like side characters in their own episode.
Yeah.
Oh, then they just walk along. Oh, let's play these magical floating notes and see what happens.
And gosh, that was so bad. Like that was another thing, because it's like, okay, this idea that you have someone who's like the god of music, and because of this idea that, like, vibration is quite a fundamental concept in the universe, like, essentially wave mechanics is quite a fundamental concept in the universe. This god has the ability to interact with anything. Okay, great, that's interesting. And then they like, and you have some of these great moments where the character seems to be able to do these transcendental things. It's like, like changing scenery around them just like on a whim and so on. Okay, interesting. And then what do their powers boil down to? Or just making these sort of magic ropes of music in the air that just,
it's just magic at this point. It's just magic.
Yeah. Which,
I think the trouble is Doctor Who has never been a really hard sci-fi show. I mean, it has had times in its past where it's tried to kind of dip into that to varying degrees of success. I mean, look at season 18 of the classic series. The trouble is they went so hard sci-fi, it was actually quite depressing. But the thing is, at this point, it's just like fantasy at this point. And the thing is, I'm not here for fantasy. If I wanted fantasy, I'd go watch bloody Merlin, for instance.
Well, as I say, it's not even really fantasy, because it's like even fantasy has rules.
This has no
Like
rules.
yeah, it's they're making
Whole
the same mistake that everyone makes with fantasy of like, oh, fantasy, you can just do whatever you want. No, you can't. Not if you want
huge of
good
rules.
fantasy. Um,
They're literally just making it up. It's the whole, oh, the toy maker's broken reality. I'm thinking that's bollocks.
it
You know, up is down, left is right, all that sort of
I
stuff.
mean, yeah, it's the thing. It's like I don't mind these kind of transcendental characters that have like very indescribable powers. It kind of like do you remember that episode from the was it the New Who series 3, where they were, it was like the Shakespeare episode.
That was quite
Um
good.
yeah, that was really great, because it's like, this idea that, oh, in this early period of the universe, like, the laws of physics hadn't really sort of become this mathematical thing yet, and they were just, like words and noise, like had these kind of strange powers and so on. And these are these creatures that come from that time, and they still sort of possess that power. And we don't really understand it in the way that sort of modern understanding of
Mhm.
science, but it's somehow worse. Great, fantastic. You can do stuff like that well, but I mean, firstly, they've done it with too many characters this time. They had like to have both the toy maker and Maestro. It's like you can only do this every
It's
now and
now being
then.
called a pantheon of gods.
Well, it's another thing. It's like again, this. Do you remember back in, like, I don't know, season or series 4 or whatever, when there were these references to like the Tricksters Brigade?
That's
Um,
one of the they've kind of linked all that together apparently.
Yeah, like I can't tell if what they're going with this pantheon is sort of supposed to be connected to that, or whatever. But I always liked this concept of the Tricksters Brigade as sort of like a mishmash of unusual and dark characters who have
Mhm.
strange and seemingly unconnected abilities, who have like strange ideas and strange attitudes about things. This can all work tremendously well, but to sort of, I mean, what they've tried to do at least 2 such characters in this season, plus
Mm.
the toy maker, 2 3 of them. It's again, you can do this stuff, but you've got to have, well, part of it is I mean, the thing I always said, and the thing that other people have said, is in the Moffat era, it became very difficult to know what the current state of the universe was, because the Daleks would just
It's
appear
changing.
and disappear at will. You had no idea. Whereas in the original Russell T Davies era, it was really, you knew what was happening in the universe at any one. You knew what the state of it was. You knew that, oh, there's the Shadow Proclamation over there. They're saying things and doing things and being referenced and so on. And this is where the Daleks are at the moment. This is what they're doing. Whereas, you know, when you have these multiple transcendental characters with strange powers, and they keep changing things, like what's this? I don't know what the state of the universe is at any one moment.
Well, they've kind of lent into this whole flux thing, which is from the uh, Jodie Whittaker era. I didn't watch any of that.
No, I've no
Apparently,
idea what
half
it
of
is.
the universe has been destroyed. No, not that you actually know it from what's going on.
It's a
I
delightful
think,
double meaning of the word flux.
yeah, well, I think bloody Chris Tiverman just made that up on the fly anyway. I think the trouble with this series is there wasn't actually any good monsters.
um, they were sort of like, yeah, no, they were like,
We haven't even talked about the Bridgerton episode, have we?
I like, God, it's just that.
I mean,
I,
the fact in the actual episode she says, "Oh, this is very Bridgerton." I think,
oh, that, gosh, that,
it's like in a book when someone says, "Oh, this is all getting a bit Harry Potter." You think,
yeah.
"Oh, bum
It's like,
fun."
yeah, the fact that they reference Bridgerton, it's bad fan fiction of bad fan fiction, referencing the bad fan fiction it is bad fan fiction of within itself. It's like if you're gonna make something that is like just a cheap replica of something else that is already a cheap replica of something else, don't mention it in your own show, for goodness sake.
Funnily enough,
Don't draw attention to the mountain of shit.
Funnily enough, Ben Pick, I think he's doing a stream shortly and with someone else where they watch the latest series of Bridgerton. I mean, you have my condolences, Ben, for having to sit through that shit.
I've no idea. Like, I mean, I think I maybe watched like 5 minutes of the first episode, like of that when it was first out. I think, but then it just immediately, the fact that it was just this hyper saturated world where like every like in a literal sense, like it's like they just turned the saturation on the video up. by
It's a bit like old
30%.
CSI
Um,
Miami, where everything would be orange.
yeah.
And actually, apparently,
Um,
real life Miami is not orange.
well, I wonder if that's the what do they call it, the orange teal color grading that
Yeah.
was really popular.
Oh, I don't
But
know. But yeah,
like
again, that episode, it's where the Doctor seems to sacrifice his companion because he fancies this other guy. Um, Fucking hell! I mean, where do you start?
I
I mean, do you remember when the Doctor used to be this kind of like austere, almost like asexual character who would be above all this? Now he's literally like flirting
yeah,
and basically
willing to
grinding and all.
willing to sacrifice this person who he's like offered to
He's
take on an adventure through time and space just because he's got a match on Grinder.
swiped right. And I
Um,
actually kind of feel this shows the limitations of Shooty Gatwa's kind of performance because I think in all of these episodes he's just been playing himself.
yeah. Um, I mean, it's fair because if I were if I were in Shooting Atwell's position, I would be like really concerned because Doctor Who tends to define one's career.
Be like James
Because
Bond.
yeah, and like when this is the output, I would be really concerned that like my career had been
You
permanently
think he's going to
damaged.
do a George Lazenby and only do one?
It's I would be amazed if either of them do another series. But like I don't know, something tells me that he will do a second one.
I think
I
they've
mean,
already
quite
committed to two. Apparently, Russell T Davies has already started writing the third that hasn't even been commissioned yet. I mean, what's it with Netflix cancelling things after 2 seasons?
yeah. Um,
Um,
I mean,
but
quite frankly, like Ncuti Gatwa probably should stay with Doctor Who because it might be quite difficult to get other things after this.
yeah,
Um, I mean, like the only things he'll be able to get after this are things that are run by the same sort of people who are subscribed to this kind of like
nonsense.
ideological nonsense. Yeah.
Or Russell T
Um,
Davies.
yeah. Well, I mean, Russell seems to have already hired a lot of his friends for
This is
this.
the thing I think that Chris Chibnall did. He hired a load of his people from Broadchurch and brought them in. So it's like, well, we only had one person in my ward. Not being funny, you didn't really try very hard, did you?
Yeah, this
So this is the
idea.
thing. If I'd done Doctor Who, I think it's like finding the next James Bond. You realise it's an era defining choice,
Yeah.
and you have to make the choice with great care. And I kind of feel with Jodie Whittaker and with Ncuti Gatwa, they haven't chosen with great care.
Yeah.
I think they've almost, in a way, this is going to sound it's fairly cynical, but they've kind of gone for the shock factor first.
Yes.
Like, oh, look at us! Look how this will get us in the papers,
Yeah.
and the actual acting ability second. I mean, I was initially a bit skeptical about Peter Capaldi. I thought he was a bit of a stunt cast, but he turned out to be extremely good. He's just given shit scripts.
Yeah.
So if it was me, I would certainly, think very carefully about who
It's
is going to be.
if I were
I
putting
think the trouble is he also suffers from the total lack of gravitas. I think he's too young. I'm going to say he's too young for it.
Ncuti
He
Gatwa.
doesn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
he does
Yes.
not. The trouble is he can't really do those big doctory speeches because he just doesn't have the presence on the screen.
And
Whether
also
he's got the ability, whether he doesn't have the acting ability, maybe not. I don't think he's experienced enough as an actor.
the sort of constant camp zaniness, like
And the
when you
crying.
when you try to intercut that with serious moments, the serious moments are never going to land because you've just seen this like hyper energetic Gen Z kid.
There's no like when he's
Like,
doing the kind of zany stuff. There's no kind of like eternal darkness behind it.
no,
It just
yeah,
feels like he's doing his own thing. I mean,
this
certainly, I just can't see this person as the same character as the other doctors.
no, it's not. It's not really Doctor Who. This is what we're watching here is Doctor Who fan fiction. Bad Doctor Who fan fiction.
And being someone who's made a Doctor Who fan film,
I mean,
I do know. And the thing is, if I might just discuss that very briefly, I was always very careful when I was making that, not to kind of go off the reservation.
I mean, your film, like it, when watching it, even though it's it's a Doctor that you've never seen before because that is unique to that film. Like it feels like it is part of that like
Universe.
2000s universe to a far greater extent than any of this stuff that Russell's doing now does. And it's like there's things within your one that are just like signifiers that like, oh yes, it's connected to this, that's connected, it's sort of, it slots into place in a way that this new stuff doesn't.
I mean,
um
I'm my own harshest critic. I could have done that fan film a lot better if I'd had more time and more experience. But alas, it was a love letter to the show,
yeah
and I was very careful with some of the bits I put in there because I kind of designed it in a way to be like, okay, we need to put this bit in because it's Doctor Who-y. We need to do this certain way. I was a bloody nightmare on set, by the way. I literally walked in front of the camera a few times saying, no, this is wrong. We need to do it this way because, oh dear, I drove the director fucking mad.
I would be like that too.
The trouble is, Ben, I was the writer and I was also the producer. So,
Yeah.
and again, this kind of goes to like a sort of discussion of philosophy. I adopted the more classic series approach to production, where the producer was the creative head of it, and then he just sort of delegated certain stuff like, director, you deal with the actors and the visuals, sound guy, you do this. But the producer in the olden days was the kind of like show the shoulders on which the show rested.
Interesting. Because
the trouble with now is like Russell T Davies is writing it, he's show running it. I hate to say they have this phrase, he's executive producing it. I should say he is the executive producer.
It's funny because a lot of the time, well, executive producers seem to be a combination of one person who's an actual producer who's actually doing some work, and then a bunch of other people who
Hangers
are just
on.
like celebrities who just like want
get a paycheck.
Yeah.
It's like in the olden days, they would have a script editor who would be the one that commissioned the scripts and worked with the script writers. The producer would have this very sort of like sort of up high view of where the show was going,
Yeah.
but would also really deal with like the sort of ground level production decisions. I'll tell you what, it's how Doctor Who was made in the past and how it's made now are fascinating sort of subjects. I think what I will have to say is Doctor Who today looks fantastic. I mean, the actual visuals on the show are incredible. I mean, this is where I think the Disney money has been spent well.
I think for the most part, yes. I mean, there's like certainly some of the sort of in the first, I'd say like 2 or 3 series of New Who, it suffered from that kind of 2000s BBC CGI problem.
I think that's because they weren't sure of what they were getting involved with, because obviously Doctor Who had ended fairly ignominiously in 1989, getting cancelled. Ironically, it got cancelled just as CGI was getting into like affordability. I mean, if you watched the last 3 seasons of classic Doctor Who, you'll see they were literally a hair's breadth away from all this exciting new technology. But of course, the BBC just lost confidence in it. Though saying that, the BBC did schedule it against Coronation Street, so it was arguably scheduled to death.
Yeah.
They're saying that the overnights for Shooty Gap with season 1 are easily the worst ever. But don't worry, Ben. It was sunny, and most people watched it online anyway.
Yes, don't worry. These numbers look bad, but what you understand is they're wrong in a way that you can't possibly verify.
Yeah, and we'll just cook the numbers until they're good, because they're now trying to say it's been a real hit with under 35s, and the Space Babies now has 6 million viewers. Poor them. I'm not being funny. I don't know how they are literally trying to spin themselves out of this mess. But don't worry, they said for every old fan who doesn't like where we're going with the show, we'll get 3 to 5 more. They literally got 3 to 5 more viewers, not 3 to 5 times more viewers. I mean, I kind of feel they're reaping what they sow, because they did. I got told by the lead actor, if I didn't know where the show was, if I didn't like the direction the show was going in, I should touch grass and watch something else. Well, guess what? I did.
It's like these people are forgetting that we live in a time when there is so much other stuff you can watch.
It is a
Um,
content avalanche at the moment. There is so much other stuff I could watch. So I think having that attitude of like, well, if you don't like it, fuck off. Are you sure? That's not very good for your audience retention, is it?
it's like, there is so much on YouTube to watch. You can fill just every single
I
day
mean, I
with.
literally pay for YouTube Premium because I use YouTube that much. I
Yeah,
use it in
yeah,
lieu of television.
yeah, yeah. I watch really nothing on the BBC anymore, um, and I haven't watched ITV and Channel 4 for years.
I
Um,
mean, you're not missing much there.
the only thing
I mean, Good Morning Britain used to be good with Piers Morgan on it because that used to be quite entertaining.
what was that an ITV thing?
Yeah, it's Good Morning Britain in the morning. It's like
Yeah,
their
I
version of BBC Breakfast, which is naff as
yeah.
it is.
I never encountered it because I basically, like, almost in my entire life I've never really watched ITV. That's with my voice, it just sounds like I'm the sort of person who I personally have never watched independent television, but
Now, you much prefer Radio 4, don't you, Ben?
it's Radio 4 and Classic FM, but
And you
like
also vote Liberal Democrat, don't you?
I think I have on one occasion voted Lib Dem.
Oh, you twat.
I think I voted for basically all of the parties once, except for Conservatives. I think I voted Labour and Lib Dem and even Green once. I think it's funny. I can't. Right. I can. I find it so difficult to remember what I voted in each election. But the
There's the house down the road for me. It's got these massive Lib Dems winning here stickers right on the garage door. I'm thinking, you twat.
It's funny because the Lib Dems are really determined to put those everywhere, and yet I don't know of anywhere where they're winning.
Possibly my area. We'll see in a week's time, shall we?
Yeah.
Or we've gone off on a tangent about the election.
Yeah,
That's dangerous, isn't it?
we shall get cancelled for that. But if we haven't already, but
who knows?
For all the other stuff. But the one of the things that I often think is with streaming platforms, I have a tremendous suspicion that when some producer or someone makes a show like The Acolyte or something, that with streaming platforms, it's so much easier to like cook the numbers and present like other kinds of numbers to like higher ups, who control what actually gets put out and so on, because like you see this in technology companies a lot of the time, where it's like when you have all of that data, you not just have the viewing numbers, but you also have how long they watch for, the exact demographics they watch for. There's all these different ways that you can break the statistics down. And what you do as someone who's like, you're answerable to someone who's like deciding whether you get money to make another series. You just like, well, here's our statistics. Oh, we see that we're like massively failing in terms of our like raw viewer numbers. Oh, but we've really increased our share in that particular demographic, like that particular age range or something.
Who cares?
So let's just present that, and let's just pick the few pieces of data where it's going up, and let's just emphasize that when we're asked how well it's doing. And I have the suspicion that this is what happens when these streaming services decide how they're going to make things, because this just keeps happening. These terrible shows keep getting more series, and you just think, we know that the general public opinion, these shows are terrible. That must surely correlate to a lot of news to some extent.
But don't worry, the 14% rating on Rotten Tomatoes is just review bombing.
Gosh, that's so funny how like these sort of corporate shills is generally what they're referred to. Like they are like clockwork. It's just like something gets bad reviews, must be review bombing. It couldn't possibly be that actually it is shit. Like not even vaguely.
I will say those that are very upset with the show are possibly more motivated to go and put a negative review on. I'm not saying that's not the case, but you have to accept the reviews are the reviews, and by the metrics that they have available, unlike Rotten Tomatoes, they have to say no one likes it.
Well, they never do it the other way. It's like, oh, this show has gotten like loads of really positive reviews. Well, it must have been review bombing. Like it must have just been a small group of fanatics who really loved it who just
No,
decided to rewrite.
never get that, do you?
Never ever suggest it. No, it's like it's astonishing. Like I remember when the Last Jedi came out, and it really split sort of the commentary, as it were,
Commentary, yeah.
the combination of sort of the like professional reviews
The
plus
Twitterati.
yeah, and like there's a lot of people realized, oh, this film is shit. And then a lot of people, it was so strange when that film out, because there's so many people who were so insistent. No, it's a brilliant film. It's brilliant. Like, and you would point out, but what about this entirely pointless scene that goes nowhere and has nothing? No, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant. The kind of strange fanaticism that it must be a brilliant film.
I
It's just
literally had
carried
people.
on.
So when I went to see not the Last Jedi, and the Force Awakens, or whatever that first one was, I was like, this is a good film. It's a very good remake of A New Hope. She's shit. We've got the Assassin's Creed version of Darth Vader. And then I said, oh, okay, I'll give it 6 out of 10. And someone said, oh, I literally had people stop talking to me because I gave it 6 out of 10. And wasn't like, oh, wasn't it amazing? No, it was. It was all right, I suppose. I didn't go and see the last 2 sequels. I think The Force Awakens is the last Star Wars property I kind of went into.
I think I sort of.
I keep thinking The Mandalorian is a show about citrus plants.
Have you seen it? Well, have you seen the like reviews, like the sort of disparate reviews and so on, and neurotic reviews for The Acolyte?
Oh, Ben says it's worse than 6 out of 10. Ben picked that is. I know Ben has many things to say about Star Wars, and I keep teasing him to go on a good Star Wars rant at some point. Most of my rating 6 out of 10 was due to this kind of technical ability of the film. But most of what the characters either said or did was pretty garbage, to be honest.
Well, it's the astonishing thing about The Last Jedi was that I think The Last Jedi was just like utter garbage, completely destroyed the franchise beyond repair. And but I would often say, like, it was the best looking Star Wars film.
I kind of feel like to say, oh, the visual effects were very good, or the visuals were good, or the sound was good. It's kind of a bit easy these days. I mean, it's not difficult to achieve good cinematography. To be fair,
I think it's quite strange because I feel like I see a lot of bad cinematography, even though it's probably easier than it's ever been.
To get it right.
Yeah, in terms of the availability of high quality cameras and
Exactly.
high quality CGI,
Mm-hmm.
and yet there's a lot of shows where it's truly dreadful. I mean, like The Devil's Cord, where it's like there's all these sort of plastic looking notes floating through the air. You just think, is like, how long did you spend on that CGI? Like 10 minutes? Like, I feel like I see it a lot. I mean, that was a bit of an anomaly in this this series of Doctor Who. Just like most of the time, it is fine, but I do feel like I see low effort CGI a fair amount.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of funny all these franchises that are just like walking around in the like rotting corpse of what the franchise used to be. There's very few of them I watch. I don't watch Doctor Who. I don't watch any of the stuff that's called Star Wars. Star Trek has apparently still been running. I don't even follow what's going on with that. There's probably a bunch of others. It seems like an entire industry that is just, we are, I would say, and we have for the last few years been witnessing the end of Hollywood and the end of that sort of strain of the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
It will, it won't be able to last much longer, I don't think.
I think eventually the money's going to run out. I mean,
People will just
Disney.
stop putting money into it. Yeah.
I mean, Disney. At some point, they're going to hemorrhage so much money they just can't sustain it anymore, and something's going to happen. The trouble is, the whole kind of like I don't know. I kind of feel the term woke mind virus is a bit of a kind of glib statement, but it's infested the company to the depths to which I don't think there is any recovery for them.
Yeah.
And same with not being funny, when you heard Doctor Who was going to be a co-production between the BBC and Disney, I thought,
Yeah, that was a yeah, particularly bad omen.
that was a red flag.
Obviously, that's basically the BBC showing we don't have the money to fund this.
Which they probably don't, to be
Yeah,
honest.
and I mean, I think, and obviously before that there was the the fact that that Flux season or whatever, they only did like 6 episodes or something.
Again, they used to be able to do 13 episodes a year.
Yeah. As soon as they said, like, as soon as it was apparent that they were only going to do 6, I was like, that's it. They're running out of money.
They can't afford it anymore.
Yeah. And I think, at some point, we'll know that it's really starting to all collapse when we start seeing Disney selling off franchises as a way to desperately try to claw some money back, which will be delightful when it happens. I hope it does happen.
That would be great to see.
Particularly
because Disney has made so many good films in the past, but it's just recently, it's just what is going on?
It's funny how there's this phenomenon of when creative people really have to struggle because they don't have enough, they've got a certain amount of money to make a thing, but it's just not quite as much as they would like. They seem to do much better than when they just have a giant
infinite money.
Yeah, tub of cash.
I mean, look at the Acolyte. They had $160 million.
Yeah.
When they said, "Oh, we couldn't afford to film that scene," I'm like, "Oh, fuck off."
Yeah.
Probably because they got too many bloody diversity consultants on the payroll.
Yeah.
Sensitivity readers.
I think you get people who sort of they're essentially
consultants.
Of what? Yeah. It's one of the funny news stories that there's a lot of news stories nowadays of these DEI consultants being paid ridiculous sums of money, and you just think, they're not even necessary in the first place. You shouldn't even be paying them like the average salary. You should be paying them well below that,
minimum wage.
Like the fact that you're paying them like 5-6 times the average salary for the country, it's mad. You don't even need them.
It's a bit like the old NHS. It likes to hire bloody diversity officers at about 80 grand a year.
I have a hypothesis that I've had for a while now, is essentially any organization, whether it's sort of an institution or a charity or a company or even a government, any organization of people that is sufficiently financially successful, sufficiently prestigious, sufficiently high status, or sufficiently powerful, will eventually, inevitably, be overcome by sociopaths. By sociopath in this case, I mean someone who is obsessed with money and power and status, and will seek that out over any kind of moral principles. Any company that's like this will inevitably become saturated by these people, and this would seem to be evident in a lot of the organizations that are producing this kind of media and related things. But to me, it seems inevitable that this would happen, or sort of obvious that this would happen, because people who are like that, anyone who is willing to seek out status and money and power, despite anything else, is obviously going to be drawn to successful organizations. The BBC.
They see all this money, they're like, "Oh, yes, please."
Yes, like the BBC, very prestigious organization. There's a lot. Well, previously at least, there was a lot of status associated with working for the BBC, and so obviously the people who are much more motivated by status than they are by creative integrity are going to be drawn to that, and eventually they succeed because they never really stop trying. And the same with Disney, like very sort of high status, prestigious organization, and I think people who seek out that kind of thing, they try to like move into these places, and eventually they succeed. And so you end up with just a bunch of people who are creatively bankrupt, completely dominating it. And what we're always seeing really is just the sort of entirely non-creative output of a bunch of people who are just vying for political power within that organization. They're not even really thinking about the audience at all. They're thinking about just their own career, their own status, how they can move up the ladder within the organization.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
what we see is it's like they're not even really thinking about it.
What I would say, it's almost like, I think this kind of happens in the indie author community a little bit, is that it's not so much about writing stories anymore. It's about how can I use writing as a vehicle for my ideology or political beliefs. So I can, instead of entertaining the audience or the reader, it's like, how can I proselytize to the audience or reader? It's like, that seems to be more and more the kind of goal, is not to entertain or tell a fun story. It's like, how can I put what I think into this and kind of use it as a platform?
Well, I think it's almost the reverse of that. It's like I have this message that I want to give out. Like what can I sort of like pack on around that therefore makes it seem like I've written a fiction story.
Exactly.
Like,
What it's a bit like the whole getting your dog to take medicine, wrapping it up in like
yes.
bacon or food or anything like that. In
But
reality, it's just dog shit.
because as I probably said in the last live stream we did, that like I enjoy writing allegorical stories. I enjoy writing stories that have got
Do you? I had
idea.
no idea.
And I think I hope it can be done well. And I hope that it's very difficult to judge it in one's own output, but I hope that that I am able to do it well. But I think it is easy to do it badly as well. And I think when you
It's
just
easier
have
to
this,
do it badly than to do it well.
yes, and I think when you just have like, this is the idea I want, and I will adjust everything else that I'm doing creatively to fit that, rather than saying, here is this world, this story that I've created, and like some part of it is about this thing, but not everything in the story just bends towards that at every moment. I think in very loose, in very very loose terms, this is possibly the difference. I mean, we were talking about it's like Doctor Who has been quite political in the past. People say this of Star Trek as well, and that Star Trek,
Make it
people now,
so.
people nowadays say, oh, Star Trek's too political, and they say, oh, it was political in the past, and it's this sort of like space socialism show, and and so like, well therefore why don't people find episodes of The Next Generation obnoxiously political? Like, no one says this of that. What, like, there clearly is a difference. And an example that I thought was interesting was, there's an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where they sort of go on a hunt for the crystalline entity. I don't know if you like, have you watched The Next Generation? I assume you have.
I watched bits of it.
Yeah.
Not the whole thing. I actually, I can't believe The Next Generation is as old as it is. It feels like a lot of like a newer show.
Really
I
old.
remember.
Yeah.
I remember. I watched Voyager as a kid. I actually,
Same.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but I actually quite liked Voyager.
I did as well, and I still do.
Oh, I bet Martin's going to tell me. I'm like, oh, Richard. I haven't watched any of the new Star Trek, because I watched a couple of the films with Chris Pine. I thought they were quite entertaining, but I've not watched any of the new series, because again, I get thinking, oh, I'm going to get proselytized by some bloody liberal.
Star Trek Discovery was just an abomination.
I remember you did some reviews of that on your channel, didn't you?
Yeah. And that was like all the kind of things that are wrong with Doctor Who. Like, Star Trek Discovery, it didn't start it, but it's like it was leading the way in all of this nonsense. But so in the episode of The Next Generation where they go on the hunt for the crystalline entity, in the like, there's like, one of the characters is a woman who has like worked out how to track this thing down, and she's obsessed with tracking it down because it killed her son, I think, when they visited a planet, and so she's become this sort of expert on tracking it down. And I can't remember when those different facts are revealed in it, but they eventually find the crystalline entity, and this woman just like takes control of the station she's working at, and uses the ship to destroy the crystalline entity. And like Patrick Stewart gets all his character gets all annoyed at this, like, how dare you kill this creature, and so on. It's like, it was just feeding, it was just doing what it was naturally going to do. And I think they made a comparison to what was it, some kind of like ocean creature, or like a whale goes down and into the ocean and eats something, and the saying I forget what maybe it goes down and eats squid or something. It's like you can't blame the whale for that. It's just its natural cycle. That's just what it's doing. And like it's an episode where the show like the characters in the show all seem to be unified around an opinion. Like, no, it was wrong to kill the crystalline entity because it's just doing what it's doing naturally. You shouldn't just attack it for that. But I was thinking, but if the squid or the crabs or whatever it is that the sea creature was eating suddenly gained the ability to kill that creature and did so in order to defend themselves, we would say, yeah, that's fine. Like, if the thing that is being hunted like gains the ability and knowledge to defeat the thing that's hunting it, yeah, you could kill it. Like, this idea that no, we just have to let it keep killing us because it doesn't know what it's doing. No, like,
it's not its fault it keeps killing us. And that's nonsense.
And it's this, like, that is a relatively rare example where it's like, okay, here the show seems to have a certain message because all of the main cast are sort of united that, like, oh yeah, this woman who tracked down, no, she's awful because she killed this thing. When actually, like, no, she's right. Like, she's like, it was a good idea to kill it. I suppose it's because all of the main cast sort of decide that this new character who we've only got for one episode, she's evil because she killed us. Like, it would have been better if they'd had like one of the other main characters, or one or two of them, say, no, I think she was right, to do that. That's a relatively rare example where, like, okay, the show seemed to have a message there, and that's not the right. I don't think that's the right, the right answer or the right message in this scenario. So that, like, there were these rare examples, of where it's like it seems like it's got a message, but it's the wrong one.
You maybe want to go back and watch Star Trek and the Next Generation now.
Yeah, I rewatch the whole thing about every 3-4 years.
I might do the same thing because I think it's been a good one. It's a pretty good show. Again, if you compare it to what Doctor Who was doing at that time in like the late 80s.
Well, it's funny how nowadays there's this kind of idea that what you like, one mustn't release a television show unless the CGI is like really sort of top quality. But people forget that the CGI is really one of the least important parts of television. Like,
it's the story.
CGI can be very basic. It's like that episode with I think the character's called Nagilum or something in Star Trek, was just like, there's just this pocket of space where Nagilum lives, and he's just two eyes and a mouth. That's all he is. Just like,
and Doctor Who was doing it in the 80s or even before that. Literally sock puppets.
Yeah.
And models made out of like cereal packets.
Yeah.
I have to say, some of the ingenuity of the visual effects team back in the day when they didn't have any money, they had like 50p to make this bloody shot work. It kind of adds to the charm in a way.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, if you get a chance, do go on iPlayer and try out some of these old Doctor Who episodes, because they are quite.
I did watch. I was going through them for a while. I think I can't remember where I got up to, because it was always very difficult to keep track. Like, iPlayer was just a bit strange with like seemingly shuffling episodes around, and like you'd sign in one day, it's like, oh, it seems to have changed the list. But I think I was partway through, or like close to the end of the first series. I did really like I remember really liking the that first set of episodes that's about the Daleks.
Or they did a colorization of that, and they
Oh
kind of
right,
amalgamated it into like a 75-minute, which is a really good thing they did, to be honest.
it's like as a series of episodes, it's like there's a lot of really interesting things in it. It's funny how just the the knowledge of making television has moved on since then, and like knowing how to maintain the pacing and keeping things going is a lot better now, I think, than it was back then. There's a lot of sort of like slow, lingering shots, but that it managed to create a lot of mystery and suspense, even in despite all of that.
Mm.
It probably like if I manage to get onto the later series, it'll probably um, uh,
What I would say is, I
speed up and so
wouldn't.
on.
Don't worry about watching every single of the classic episodes. You can jump around a little bit.
Mm. Yeah, so my compulsion is to watch them all in order.
Yeah.
um, um, which yeah, there's certain shows that's not ideal for.
No. But yeah, I am very kind of sad as to the state of where Doctor Who is at the moment, because I just think we initially thought, oh, they're bringing Russell T Davies back. Oh, this might be good. No, no,
Yeah,
no.
considering the potential, it's gone so horribly wrong. But it's, I mean, yeah, the absolute state of Doctor Who, roll credits, at the moment is that it is just like, it's a zombie. It's just like
It
um
needs to. I think the show does need a long rest.
yeah, they need to cancel it, take it off the air for a decade, let it change hands, well, bring it back purely into British hands,
It stopped
and
bloody kowtowing to the bloody Americans.
yeah, um make things, yeah, just complete separation
I think
from
less is more. To be honest, less is more.
it's, I can't remember, is Midnight an episode you like?
Mid- Midnight. Oh no, I hated that episode.
I
I
could like
could I couldn't fucking stand it.
because I couldn't remember who I was speaking to who really liked, because that was
Some people really liked it because it was very pared down, but you never kind of found out what the fucking monster was in the end.
well, what
I
I
thought it
really
was
liked
shit.
what I really liked is because there's like I think the first, you know throughout the first sort of suggestion that you get that there's some sort of monster is like, one of the drivers of the
Space
jeep or whatever it
Bus.
is, like just like says, what's that? And the other characters look, and then it cuts to a scene of the outside, and then you as the viewer want to sort of look and see, like, can you see a thing? And I don't think it ever does show anything, but it's like this sort of belief that maybe you can see it, if you look closely enough. It's like the fact that you constantly come close to see it, maybe like seeing something or finding out what is this thing, and like like I really like that, just because well,
Mhm.
it's a kind of transcendental villain, although a very different kind, but just this sense of like, we have no idea what this thing's powers are, we have no idea how it works, what it is, where it comes from, nothing about it, other than that it is very strange, very surreal, and we think in the end it is destroyed, um,
Yeah,
and that episode's got Colin Morgan in it, pretty sure that's his
yeah.
name, who
He
was
was
Merlin, of
Merlin.
course,
That
which
was a good show back
a
in the day on
brilliant show.
Merlin.
The ending was rushed and cut short, but otherwise a brilliant show.
Good fun.
Yeah, they don't make shows like that anymore.
No, they don't indeed. They just make crap instead. Woke
Um,
crap.
but yeah, it's Doctor Who. It needs to end. It needed to end quite a while ago, and they've just been like parading the corpse around, on a
Yeah,
very expensive budget, I assume.
a very expensive horse.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's probably going to be quite a while before the next series comes out, so it might be quite a while before we do another one of
Well,
these,
who
if
knows?
at all.
Who
Who knows?
knows?
But we can end it there. Do
This has
you
been
have?
fun.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to promote?
What my political opinions? No.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's just do an all-night election stream.
Oh, excuse me. Oh no! Oh no! I do not. Listen, I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock on Thursday night, and that is that.
Well, I'm going to stay up all night. Like, this is my tradition. Every time there's a general election, I watch it all come in live.
We'll saying that I probably will, because it's probably going to be a car crash for the governing body, isn't it? Or the governing party, rather, isn't it?
0 seats, 0 seats.
The only thing I'm not looking forward to is seeing the fucking smug look on the Lib Dems' faces and the Labour Party's faces. Because that's going to be unbearable, isn't it?
It's going to be a strange election because, like,
son of a tool maker. Yeah, well, look at the
yeah,
the biggest tool was him.
yeah. It's my favorite. Like, yeah, we know, Kia, you're the tool.
You're the biggest.
But it's strange. Like, I've never, you know, I I don't think there's much. It's strange how Labour is going to win. Yet I think that there seems to be a real sort of absence of enthusiasm for them right across the political spectrum, apart from one very specific part of it, seemingly, which is the people who's going to vote for them. Because a lot of the people on the far left also
Can't
hate
stand
Keir
him.
Starmer, and everyone who is sort of, right of, well, just like centrist or right, well, maybe some centrists like it, but almost everyone else is like, I've never known such a hated figure be so likely of
To be Prime
winning
Minister.
an extraordinary majority. It's the most bizarre election.
I do feel that it's going to be just interesting to see. Again, there's no enthusiasm for Labour on the doorstep.
It's particularly strange because I've generally said for the last few years that in any election, it kind of seems to be that the side that has the most enthused voter base tends to win.
Wins. Well, this is
Um,
it. And if you look at the Conservative campaign, no one gives a shit.
no, like they seem to be utterly hated.
I think the trouble is the Conservative membership are pissed off that Boris got knocked out. Then they voted for Liz Truss. Then she got knocked out, and now they got imposed with bloody Rishi Sunak, who they didn't want. They're like,
Yeah.
oh well, I'm just going to stay home then.
I've heard it said a few times that when Conservative voters, or people who normally vote Conservative, are sort of, just not very enthused, they often don't go and vote for a different party. They just stay home.
They just don't vote at all.
Yeah.
So seeing their kind of like ground campaign just evaporate.
It's been so funny as well, just like all of the just like absurd sort of thick of it style things that have happened, like the fact that the Conservatives did they like launch their campaign, or early on in their campaign they went to where the Titanic was built. It's like, don't launch your campaign where a ship that famously sank was built. It's just like
I mean, not being
basic
funny.
stuff.
Even the election date itself, July the 4th, Independence
Yeah.
Day.
Just even though it's obviously an American thing, it's just a bit of a weird thing, a
You're
weird
giving
choice.
your opponents ammunition for free.
And then the fact that when he announced the election, it was like
It's
they did,
pissing
for
down the
some reason,
rain.
did it outside in the rain
And he
with the
got.
Labour anthem blaring in the background. It's like, you could have done it indoors. Why didn't you just
But
do it
he said
indoors?
he was like, "It's my duty to make this announcement, rain or shine." I'm thinking, "Oh fuck off!" Not only that, they spent £2 million on that brand new briefing room.
Yeah.
Remember, they got everyone in lots of trouble, and you had that bloody stop Brexit swat blaring out. Things can only get better. Oh, he's going to be unbearable for the next 5 years.
And then it was like it also kind of, I can't remember if general election campaigns are normally longer than this. It kind of feels like normally they last a
Blink
bit
and you miss
longer.
it.
And this has gone so far. It kind of seems like the Tory party didn't even like know themselves that they were going to call it. They just sort of,
Oh shit!
just seems like they
Shit.
spontaneously decided, yeah, let's just call it.
Meanwhile,
Oh, we
not being
didn't prepare at
funny,
all.
Labour have been like on an election footing all year.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that he must have thought, oh, let's have the election on the 4th of July. Oh, shit, I better tell someone. Oh, I'll tell the country first. Oh, by the way, guys, we're having an election.
Mm.
It is kind of funny because he did say that the election would be in the second half of 2024, and he called it for the first Thursday in the second half of 2024. I have to say that is quite some trolling.
Just like, yeah, utter nothing they have done makes sense from the point of view of someone who actually even wants to try to win again, or wants to survive at all. It's I feel like I've never known anything like. I mean, I possibly also say this with every election that I've never known anything like it, or I don't know, maybe each one is just getting more and more insane.
Are you
but
fed up of living through unprecedented times?
yes. When is it going to be precedented again?
I just think things will go back to normal for a bit. It is going to be interesting, shall we say?
It's funny because
I will say one thing: I still haven't decided how I'm voting.
I know who I'm voting for, and I think I probably told you as well.
I won't say it publicly for fear of my reputation, but it's 60-40 between two choices, and I do think it's going to come down to how I'm feeling on Thursday morning, because I'll go and vote before work. I'm also not being funny. Call me unpopular, but I believe in voting in person. It's part of the whole theatre of an election.
Yeah, it's like it's
Postal
one of
voting.
it's
So
one of those
fun
things where
there.
it's like postal voting seems like it's gonna there's like maybe good reasons to do it, and it's like there's some people who can't really get there and so on. It's I feel like it's maybe starting to, or maybe has gone a bit too far to the point of like, oh, kind of anyone can postal vote, and something like, unless you've got a really good reason, like you can't walk,
Like you got a broken leg.
yeah, like I think go you got to go there. I think you've got to have a reason why you physically cannot go, otherwise you have to go.
It's been like the people in COVID who couldn't wear a mask for 45 minutes to go to the shop. I'm like, well, just fuck off then. If you can't wear a mask for 40, or the people that would wear it under their nose. Oh my god.
Or people who would just hold it in their hand.
I have to say, I did kind of become like the mask police during the pandemic. I'm thinking, you've been asked to do one simple thing, just do that.
I was always a bit mischievous because I never, the sort of the masks where it's like hooks around your ears and then goes around your face. I never really wanted to wear those, so I always use these kind of I don't know what it's kind of like a tube of fabric, and they're sort of these multifunctional things. But that's what
snood.
Oh, that's a horrible word. Like
it really is, isn't it? A snood.
But that's kind of like
sounds like a sort of naughty picture you send to someone, isn't it? I'm gonna send you a snood.
It also sounds like a kind of name I might use for one of the trolls.
You should do it. Snood
I've already used snong and
snood the erotic.
It's kind of like how when they released the Star Wars the first of the Star Wars sequels films, and it turned out like the main villain was called Snoke. I just thought, what the hell kind of name is Snoke? Like that's the kind of name or like a sort of mildly irritating character in a Dickens novel, like Mr. Snoke will see you now. Like that's what that is. That's not a name of an evil character.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like that white correcting fluid you used to put on paper.
Yeah, just cross it out with some Snoke.
You know what it is? It's Snoke trash.
Indeed.
Oh dear, we're getting off onto a tangent about the election, which is dangerous, isn't it? But it's going to be. Let's just say I'm probably going to enjoy this election night a lot less than I enjoyed the last one.
A lot less, did you say?
A lot less. I remember I got the exit. I remember I was watching the coverage on the 2019. It was just before Christmas, wasn't it?
Yes.
I watched the election, and someone said to me, "Richard, have you seen the exit poll?" And I just missed it because I was a few minutes behind on catch up. And I replayed it, and I was literally cheering.
I mean, one of the, I suppose, for the most part, it kind of seems like everyone knows.
It was literally like Christmas came early, and I have to say that the fact that the results came out on Friday, the 13th of December, I was like, oh. I was up to 4 a.m. watching the election results. This is the thing also about British elections, because I know American elections is all electronic, so the results come in as the polls close. But it's that kind of drama of seeing them running with the ballot boxes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that part of it. It's like, we've got these kids from the secondary school to all do the passing of the boxes, and they've all got to stand in a line and pass them one to another. And it's like, it's it's kind of silly because it's like we don't really need that, but it's just kind of that's just what we do. It's just just get the teenagers to pass them around.
Yeah, get them staying up past their bedtime.
um, and but it's funny because this this election kind of seems like everyone knows the result in advance because there's just such a huge majority on one side. It seems like it can only go one way, and then it's just a fight between the other parties and certain situations. But
saying that, you never know.
well, something I wonder is that it like it it seems like I see a lot of the sort of videos of things that are happening with reform, and it seems like they have a lot of events where a lot of people turn up, and the thing that people keep saying is like it's so unusual for any politician to be able to draw those kind of crowds.
There's only been a handful in our kind of like lifetimes, like
Yeah.
when Boris Johnson could draw a crowd wherever he turned up. Donald Trump could, rightly or wrongly, he can draw a crowd.
Yeah, and it's only because
he can also finish a sentence.
Oh God, that interview with that debate was, I couldn't believe it.
I was laughing my head off.
It's what's strange. We're getting so political now, but it's great. What's strange is that I watched some of the reaction
What
from
he
more.
said to him, I didn't really understand what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he did either.
Like it was amazing because it just kind of seemed like Donald Trump found it effortless to just sort of like almost like dismiss Biden and just like he's lost it, he's got no idea what he's talking about. Normally in previous sort of debate cycles Trump has been like very sort of vociferous and almost bombastic in combative, and
he
he's
was
just
kind
like
of laid back.
he didn't need to do any of it this time because he was just up against. And have you seen the videos comparing Joe Biden now to like 10 years ago?
Oh my God, it's like
It is
people.
extraordinary the difference in just like speaking ability. His voice has lost a lot of power as well.
And then they interviewed him the next day where he was like watching a different person. They said, "Oh, the drugs kicked in 12 hours too late."
Well, famously,
and then you had his wife Jill Biden. You answered all the questions. You knew all the facts. I'm talking to him like he was a fucking 5-year-old.
That's the real sign that it's all going wrong.
It's dreadful. I hate to think what Ben's thinking because we're talking about American politics here. Like, oh dear. I have to say that election is going to be a proper fun election, isn't it?
Yeah, but because
I predict the campaign once it really kicks off in like the autumn, it is going to be filthy. And you know what? I'm here for it.
Because
the campaign for this general election in the UK hasn't really kind of kicked off, has it?
No, it's been really muted.
Nothing's fucking happened.
Yeah.
Apart from Channel 4 potentially hiring an actor to show up Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
I mean, Channel 4 biased? Surely not.
But
I'm still upset that the government didn't manage to privatise Channel 4. That would have been entertaining. Yeah. You remember old Nadine Dorries, don't you?
Yeah, vaguely.
She was so entertaining. She was like Boris's biggest cheerleader.
Oh yes, yeah.
You see that meme of her giving her this like puppy dog eyes to him, and it pissed all the right people off.
But the thing I find interesting about reform is that famously with the EU referendum, a lot of people voted who hadn't voted in years, and this like caused I forget exactly what the sort of opinion polls and the predictions said beforehand. I forget how much of a disparity was. I think that I have a vague recollection that there was at least some disparity, and that this was part of what caused the sort of upset in Westminster, is that they really thought it was going to go one way, including based on what polling was saying, I think, and it didn't, and it went the other way. And part of me wonders, we know it's the same kind of people who are likely to vote reform. Is it going to happen again, and is that going to make a big difference to the results?
I think that's a bit of a danger for them, is that they're riding so high in the polls. It's like, are the people actually going to turn up? Because there is this degree of like, oh well, Labour's 25 points ahead. I don't need to bother to vote.
Well, and there's also this phenomenon of it's interesting. Throughout my entire life since sort of being able to vote, being of age to vote, there's always been this phenomenon of like, oh, well, Labour will win this time because they have the youth vote.
They never turn up anyway.
They never turn up. Like every time it's been predicted, it's like, oh, they just didn't bother turning up. And I mean, it may not be the same. It's like now the people who were youths 14 years ago are now people in their late 20s and 30s who may actually be more effortful in turning up. But so it may not be the same this time. But it's like I've lived through so many elections where there's always been this prediction of, oh, Labour's going to do so much better this time. And they never do. And this time it seems inevitable that they're going to do well. But I wonder if they're, maybe they're, instead of getting 40% of the vote, they get like 35 or something. It's like significantly off or something, just because.
I mean, we shall see.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to get this humongous majority. Well, I kind of hope not, to be honest.
Well, it's strange, of course, because the phenomenon of first past the post means that the number of seats you get is very non-linear. And so there's a certain percentage of votes you get where, it's like if you go from like 1% of votes to 2%, it basically, there's no increase in seats. But if you go from like, choosing sort of random numbers, if you go from like 23 to 24% or 29 to 30%, that corresponds to a huge increase in seats, because that means you're now finally pushing over into first place in a certain number of constituencies. So I have no idea where that point is, but it seems to be how it works, and it may just be that Labour is on sufficiently high that they get a ridiculous number of seats because they just happen to win in
mainly because all the other opposition voters just don't bother turning up, or they split the vote.
It's like the one of the things that's been truly awful about this election cycle is that I have so many of the parties are completely indistinguishable from one another. It's the uniparty. There's just one party, and it's like tiny little variations in policy that they're arguing about. And it reminds me of, I think it was the 2010 election all over. Like people said, I think it was in that election, people would just say constantly, there's no difference between the main parties. And it's like, we're at that same position again. How did we end up at this again? And this is really frustrating.
Maybe we should do a stream over election.
Yeah.
Weekend.
Well, I've previously thought about doing spinning up yet another YouTube channel that's just called like Let's Get Political or something, because
with Ben.
It's
Big Ben's political channel.
Yeah. But because and this actually brings us back to authory stuff.
Thank God for that.
A lot of authors.
We've probably lost all of our viewers at this point.
Yeah, a lot of authors really, they really want to express political wisdom. Anyone on social media, everyone on social media wants to sort of go on a bit of a political rant every now and then.
And they do.
And it always causes a problem, because inevitably they've got followers who don't have the same opinions, and then all those followers leave, and there's a big fines up. And I think people would be much more forgiving of people getting political if we simply separated our sort of political and non-political.
So they can choose to ignore the politics over there.
Kind of like how was it? Is it Shad Brooks? Like Shadiversity. Is that his name? Shad Brooks. Does he's got his Shadiversity channel, and then he's got his Night's Watch channel, and like one of these, no, it's just swords and castle and all of that, and the other one is getting much more political.
And you can ignore what you want then, can't you?
Yeah. I think people are maybe more forgiving of that, and that maybe that's the way that one should do it. And so all those authors out there who suddenly want to start making political statements, maybe that's the way to do it. Just like have a separate thing for your activism, rather than rolling it all into one. But
on that note,
yeah. Do you have anything? You got a newsletter?
I do have a newsletter. It's on my website. You should sign up for it.
It's a
I
very good
occasionally
newsletter.
thank you. You're one of my regulars. You're
Yeah.
always like one of the first to read
Always
it.
first.
By the way,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good fun. Have I got anything else to promote? New book out yesterday. Go and buy it if you want.
How many books do you have out in total now?
It's a good question. Let's ask KDP, shall we? KDP. He says, typing very conspicuously loudly. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 titles on my KDP.
Does that include
That
the
includes
one
my 2
from...
short stories and my novella and my 2 novels.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so can find you've probably got an Amazon author page as well, where it's all
I
available.
do. I never update
and a
it.
web. Do you? It's one of my. I like to. It's probably the tidiest thing I've got in all of my.
Your website's pretty good, though.
I'm trying to improve the website nowadays. The one of the sections of the website that I've got, and there's not much point me mentioning this because it's not worth promoting, but I have a writing FAQs section.
Oh, that's a very good section.
I had done a bit on it. I put various, and it's sort of like one page per question, and there's various different things in there. And I had done a certain amount in it, but it's the sort of thing you've just got to keep doing it. You've just little bits at a time. And recently, I've really tried to sort of like, okay, I'm just going to try and like add a page a day to that or something, and that's going well. I shouldn't like now that I've said that, I'll probably fall off a cliff again and stop adding to it. But that's like I think with an author website,
single or double quote marks for dialogue.
Yeah.
In the UK, generally, single quote marks.
Yeah. But I think with an author website, the thing to do is you just to add a little bit every day, tiny amount, and you just allow it to grow organically. I think this is the way to do it, because otherwise it's a mammoth task.
New terms. Are these the terms you've made up?
Yeah. I added that because there's only 2, so I'm pretty sure I've made up more, but I didn't go back and look for them. The dramatic dissonance was my favorite. That's the thing that came up in those Star Trek reviews. Dramatic dissonance. That's when all of the characters appear to think, like you have one character says something or does something, and then all of the other characters around them react in a certain way, but then the audience is like, what? What? Why are they reacting? It's like, you have one character, they say something, all the other characters think they're a genius, and then the audience is like, what? That was really stupid. Essentially, when the reaction of the other characters is trying to sort of force a reaction upon the audience, but the audience just doesn't have that reaction. It keeps coming up in all these shows, but yeah. So that's my thing. BenjaminTMills.com. That's the website. Anyway, we've managed almost 2 hours. Next time, Political Street. Join us on Thursday for an all-night election special. No,
maybe not Thursday night.
One day I'll start doing that, but not this time.
Yeah, maybe when it's a less depressing election.
If anyone who watches back later, the last of these videos did. It got a number of views coming in, just people watching it later, until the point where it just drops out the algorithm altogether. So if there's anyone who does appear and managed to watch all the way to the end, hello,
hello,
and now goodbye, because that's the end.